Jacobson here to give us a presentation about his search firm. Yeah, please join us. We appreciate you. Like I said, when we met, we appreciate you coming and meeting with us in person. This is very helpful for us to be able to ask questions directly. We appreciate you coming.
Your mic's not working.
My mic, maybe I need to get it closer. Is that better? Yeah. There we go. Thank you. So how we've structured the meeting is we figured for 20 minutes roughly, we'll let you go ahead and make a presentation. We do have a list of questions that we've compiled, and so we need to go, we have 30 minutes after that to ask the questions and answers as well.
I'm looking forward to it.
Okay, well, great. Now, is there any information or background about North Shore for me before you dive in?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, because we're very pleased that you're able to come join us, so please go ahead.
Thank you. I do want to thank the board very much for the opportunity to present. I know you have choices to make in terms of who's invited to a presentation, so I really do appreciate it. And I must say that it is absolutely great for me personally to come back to North Shore, where I spent 11 years working in the district, 11 wonderful years, I might add. I'm so thankful for this district. It's a great district. Two, it's a great community. And the district offered me, in terms of my career, wonderful opportunities for growth and career development. So I'm delighted. I looked at the pictures of your former superintendents. I know every one of them up there. I looked at your board members' plaque. I recognized at least 14 names. And so, I feel really comfortable. So I really don't have questions about the district at this time, other than I know you've grown a lot. I think when I was here it was 13 or 14,000. You're approaching 21,000 now, I believe. And so it's great to be back. I'd like to really start off the presentation talking a little bit about our Washington State consultants, and then go into our firm and the services that we offer. And I want to start with the consultants because, while many firms offer a similar approach, what's also very important is the board having confidence and trust in the consultants. And in Washington State, McPherson and Jacobson has 7 consultants. For this particular opportunity to work with North Shore, I would be the lead consultant along with Doug Kerner. Doug is in Spokane today. He'll be back tonight, and he apologizes for not making it. A little bit about Doug. Doug was the former superintendent of Centralia School District. Prior to that, he was an assistant superintendent in Centralia. Prior to Centralia, he worked in Pasco School District as director of personnel. And he also has a strong background in special education. When Doug retired, I personally recruited him to the Clover Park School District as the executive director for HR, Human Resources. And later, he became deputy superintendent of Clover Park. Like Doug, we work very closely with students in addition to general administration. I've been a teacher, an elementary principal, a high school principal, a executive director for elementary education, an executive director for secondary education, and I've been a superintendent. When I retired, Clover Park asked me to leave retirement. I only retired for 2 or 3 months, and I went out there as a deputy superintendent because it was a brand new superintendent, and she needed a little bit of mentoring, and I was happy to do that. Trouble is, it lasted 6 years. On the 7th year, I was planning to retire again, and she left the district, so I became the interim superintendent of Clover Park. As a group of consultants, we've done over 50 searches in Washington State, and I personally have been involved in over 25 searches. Little districts like Wishkah Valley, and bigger districts like Federal Way and Bellevue, and I did work last summer with the Seattle School District when they were looking for a director of enrollment and planning district of about 52,000. Of course, I was familiar with Seattle too because I spent 14 and a half years in Seattle before I came to North Shore for 11 years. My stay in Olympia was also 11 years. I don't know what it is about 11 years, but it seems to roll around a lot. McPherson and Jacobson is a national firm. We're located in Omaha, Nebraska, but I spent my entire life in Washington State. Both the Seattle area, the east side of Lake Washington, and the last 26 years in Olympias. Doug and I both live in Olympia, so we're relatively close. Today was perfect. It took less than an hour and a half to get here. Our firm is a national firm, as I said, but we also have strong Washington State ties. McPherson is a firm that was started in 1991. It's been around for 25 years. We have 110 consultants nationwide, located in about 30 states, including the District of Columbia. As a firm, we've done over 600 searches. McPherson came into Washington State in 2007, and I joined them in 2008. And once again, we've done about 50 searches in the state. You know, looking for a superintendent is a very, very important job of the school board. It's one of their primary responsibilities. As a firm, we know that you are the hiring body. What we like to do is assist you with the process, including providing you with what we believe is an effective decision-making model. As a firm, we believe in a very open and transparent process with high involvement of community groups. In fact, we generally would not work with a board that did not want to have an open process. We watched other searches, namely nationally, but a little bit in the state, they didn't do that, and in the long run, didn't pay off. We work strictly for you. We do not represent the candidates or the applicants, but that doesn't mean we're not in close communication with the applicants. We are. In fact, it is very important to keep them abreast of what's going on, because we certainly wouldn't want to lose a qualified applicant out of neglect. And so we communicate with them thoroughly. You know, this is an interesting time. It's late in the year for a superintendent. I've been following, as perhaps you have, is what's been going on in Snohomish, in Edmonds, and in North Thurston School District, and perhaps in Walnut School District. And so we kind of have an idea of, you know, who within the state has been looking for positions. We do have a large database of candidates on a national level that we go to also. We're proud of our successes in that 80% of the people that we've held place in a school district have stayed in the position 5 years. And that's especially important, I believe, because student achievement, and that's what we're really here for, helping students achieve, is tied to the sustainability of leadership in the district staying. And so we're proud that 80% of our applicants that have been hired have stayed in their position. We will employ a 4-phase approach with an optional 5th phase as we work on a search. Now, in most searches, some of these phases overlap in terms of the timeline. I would think in this search, if we were fortunate enough to get the job, there would be a lot of overlap with the 4 phases. If we are hired, and in phase 5, which deals with working with the board and the superintendent in terms of performance objectives and metrics, we would guarantee the search for 1 year. Meaning, if the person left for any reason during that first year of employment, we would do the search free of charge, except for the expenses, which would be travel, meals, the first meal, lodging, and things like that. We're a turnkey operation. We kind of do it all. We do need a district representative. We call them a POC, a point of contact. Oftentimes it could be the executive assistant to the current superintendent, sometimes a communication person, sometimes a combination of those two. Our fee for our services in phase 1 through 4 is $22,000. If the 5th phase is picked up, option 5, phase 5 is $1,500 in addition. And so you know, from this point on, and I want to be cognizant of time here, I'd like to go over our 4 phases with you. But I feel the need to stop a little bit because you're looking for a permanent position, but you're also recognizing that we need to go with an interim. And so I see kind of a parallel working on both of them at the same time. In fact, because I'm really excited about this opportunity, I've already made my list of potential interim people that might be interested. And I have about 18 names on it so far. Some might be long shots, but I'm just excited, so I went ahead and kind of did that. But let's talk about the 4 phases. In phase 1, I work with you to identify the characteristics, the qualities, the attributes, the skills, the experience that you're looking for in the next superintendent. We want to find a good fit, a perfect fit as much as possible, dealing with the candidate's strengths as well as recognizing the needs and expectations of the school district. We work with the board, also in phase 1, to identify the groups that you would like us to work with for input in the process. Oftentimes it includes teachers, principals, other staff members, administrators, community members, and students, usually secondary students. We will work with you to establish an initial timeline. And once again, I jumped ahead in your packet somewhere. I have a draft timeline. Once again, it's draft, but once again, because of the timing and maybe the lack of time, I wanted to put some thoughts down on paper for you to consider. I could see this search lasting about 2 months. Most searches I'm involved in last a little bit longer, about 3 months. But I think we could do it, I know we can do it in 2 months. In phase 1, we'll develop a promotional brochure that will go out to many sources. In the brochure, we'll include the selected criteria that you're looking for, the timeline, the application procedures, information about the district and the community. Now, the last part, district and the community, that's important because especially on a national level, you'd like to share with the candidates what this community is like, the district's like, so we provide information in the brochure for that. Going into phase 2, we work with the groups that you've identified as wanting input, and I would write a summary of those input sessions for you. We would link up the brochure with the various websites, WASA, AASA, WASDA, NSD, etc. We would also send the brochure out to colleges, universities, and it's going to be put on various websites. Our application form is also online. All the applicants apply online. They are expected to address the criteria that you identified in an narrative form. We'll also discuss with you regional and national advertising opportunities. I must say that you don't have to spend a lot of money there because of the websites. Many are free. And, you know, from the Washington Association of School Administrators, the School Directors Association, to the Principals Association, and McPherson and Jacobson's website, these would all be free. You know, McPherson and Jacobson gets about 80,000 hits every month, so pretty good website. There are a couple websites that you might want to consider paying a little bit of money on, like the AASA, American Administrative School Administrators Association. Top School Job is another one. You could do both of those probably for under $1,000 a month on their website. We want you to get your very best bang for your buck on that. We do recruit actively. As I mentioned, we have a large database. So we do recruit, but once again, I want to emphasize we represent you, not the applicants. We will send out the selected criteria to our 110 consultants nationwide and ask them to nominate people that they think are qualified for this position. As I mentioned earlier, we will communicate on an ongoing basis with applicants. We don't want to lose quality applicants. In phase 2, if you wish, we will provide compensation data in terms of what similar sized districts and geographical locations, what those districts are paying. We can provide that data for you. Moving into phase 3 is where folks really get quite busy, because in addition to recruiting, we'll read and evaluate all the completed files submitted, and we'll compare those applicants to, once again, your criteria. We want that perfect match, district needs and expectations to the applicant's strengths. We will start screening the applications. As soon as someone applies, we'll actually start screening, because it's all online and I can do that continuously. As part of the initial screening, I send a survey out to all the references. In addition to the screening instrument, that survey, we call the references and ask them questions such as, tell us the strengths of the candidate, what areas they need improvement, and then we also ask them, is there anything in that person's personal background that if it became public information would become an embarrassment to the district and the board? That's a very revealing question. Most of the time it's no, they're great. But once in a while there's a pause, and when there's a pause, we ask them to elaborate a little bit. We will, as I said, we will call the listed references, but we'll go beyond that. In terms of in-state candidates with Doug's experience and my experience, we have lots of people we can call that aren't listed as references that know the applicants. So we'll go beyond the initial list, because usually the initial list is quite positive. Not always, oftentimes. As I mentioned, we will review all the applicants' files. We will be looking for a pattern developed of what people are saying and what they think about the individual. Once we have that pattern, we feel pretty comfortable coming to you and suggesting a short list of candidates that you might want to consider. But some boards want to see every file, and if that's what the board wants, we can accommodate that too. I'm working with a group right now that wants to read every file, so we put them on a PDF and put them out that way. We work with both the board and the community in terms of appropriate questions that could be asked during the interviews. We are very knowledgeable of the open meeting law, and we can provide some guidance there. That's a little bit more common, quite honestly, with smaller districts that need a little bit more assistance with the legality and things, but we can't provide that. In phase 4, our last phase before the optional one, we'll coordinate all the interviews and visitations. We'll assist the identified stakeholders of their role after the input. And if the board would like to have forums, which is usually the case, with the different stakeholder groups, and in addition to the community in general, we will work on setting those up, and we will also provide them legal advice on what can be asked and what not asked. Community forums often include staff, teachers, and other staff members, and community forums. I did note in your criteria, you talked about the Latino community, and we could certainly provide special forums for them with interpreters. The way I probably would want to go about it is meet with an individual, 2 or 3 in the community to see how best to arrange that, if they want to help with the interpretation, or if they would like us to find somebody. Probably the district has some people already that they can provide Spanish language presentations. I can do about that much in Spanish. My wife back there can do more. In phase 4, we'll contact all the finalists, schedule the interviews. We will assist in making final arrangements for the finalist visit to the district, and we will personally call all finalists that were not hired. In fact, we call everyone that has applied, whether they've been hired or not. Once again, phase 5, I talked about the performance objectives and the metrics. We pick a weekday or a Saturday and sit down with the board and the superintendent and work with the superintendent developing an action plan. I think I've reviewed the expenses, $22,000 for 1 through for 1,500 for phase 5. Expenses would be travel, meals, and lodging, and that, thinking ahead once again, if I was so fortunate to get to work in North Shore for this search, I'd devote as much time as you would like. If you want me here for 3 or 4 days, staying here day and night. I know she's got a Marriott residence place pretty close by. I would certainly do that. So at this point, I'm open to your questions. I look forward to them. And I did notice the expectations you have, and I'm hoping that during the question and answer period we can talk about those, and if not, I'll bring them up at the end. So I went a couple minutes over my time, but good to do it.
So we do have a list of questions, and I'm just going to kick it off with one that came up when we were going through the proposals. We're very cognizant of the timeline that we have. Being that it's March 29th. And so have you, either personally or has McPherson and Jacobson had experience running a search where it's somewhat in the spring and we have to think about when would be appropriate to switch to an interim search as opposed to permanent? Just wondering what kind of experience.
Yes, the search that comes to mind most recently on that, two of them. One was Bellevue. If I recall, and I think pretty accurately, the person was hired for Bellevue about the first week in June. And it was a little bit late search. And that, fortunately, was a successful search. The board was a little concerned at the time, but they're exceedingly happy with their selection. And so we didn't have to switch to an interim. When we did the Longview search, the board was not satisfied with the candidates. And there were some interesting dynamics going on for that, which I won't go into. But we had to, late in the spring, locate an interim superintendent for them. And we brought in 3 people for the board to meet, and they liked all of them, but they selected one. And so, knowing the territory, I think we can go quite a ways into the search before saying we need to shift. I would think around from this date or tomorrow, for about maybe 5 weeks, I will have a pretty good handle in terms of who the applicants are and whether I think you would be satisfied. I think shortly after that, if you find out you're not satisfied, you go into a real serious looking for an interim. Now that, we talked about a parallel approach. That doesn't mean, with your concurrence, I could go out and start feeling some interim people out. Once again, I'm familiar with them, and we have enough kind of a relationship that they know the board wants a permanent superintendent. If by chance that doesn't happen, might they want to be considered for an interim? Does that answer?
It does. For myself, we don't have necessarily a formal format. If any of my fellow board members would like to ask questions, please feel free. I can just kind of bring down the list. But
I was curious, Mr. Cohen, how many searches you're currently working on personally, and how that would play into this potential opportunity?
This has been kind of a light year. I was pretty busy last year. I'm working right now with the Washington State School Directors. It's the only job I'm working on now. And that's a 16-member board. And we are I'm going to work with them all day Saturday, this Saturday, where they'll be selecting the semifinals. And the only, I would have three Saturdays, and maybe one Friday, to spend time with that board. But other than that, I'm totally free. And if you had a chance later to look at our division of work, in terms of the consultants, we're at the downward side and the board is on the upward side because you're doing the interviewing. And so the short answer, I'm quite free and available. and once again, willing to get a motel room here.
Great. Another question we've been talking about is the idea about having a process that would look at internal candidates, external candidates. We've had, although we haven't discussed this as a board to come to a conclusion in terms of qualifications, some people have thrown out the idea of candidates from outside of education. I'm not sure we can go down that route, but in terms of, these seem like they could be pretty separate processes, or would they be a similar process?
I think they would be quite similar. You know, if we open it up for interim, then I don't want to restrict anyone from applying. And so, take all comers that want to apply. You know, I know a name or two that might want to be an internal candidate in this district. I know of individuals that used to work in this district that might want to be an interim candidate. Just the last, non-traditional candidates. I'm trying to think if I personally worked with a board that selected one. No, I haven't. Doing the WASDA job right now, we are looking at a number of non-traditional educators. But what it oftentimes it comes down to, and more so in the last maybe 5 or 6 years, with a strong emphasis on student achievement, having someone with an educational background seems more important to school districts and the boards than it was maybe 10 years ago when military people, you know, we all heard of John Stanford in Seattle, and Greg Lynch, who is now an ESD superintendent, who was Army, I believe. It's going a little bit away from that because of the strong issues of education, knowing instruction, evaluation, and so forth. But if there's a good one out there, I wouldn't rule it out.
So you mentioned that you know certain people, or you have familiarity with people that have worked in the, by the way, I'm a Bothell High graduate, so we probably just missed each other.
I was there in 81.
I was 82.
Oh,
Yeah.
just
Just missed. Then I think Bagnall came in, or?
at Bothell?
Yeah.
I think Larry Peterson.
Peterson, that's who, yeah.
I replaced Larry, and Larry replaced me because Woodville High was put off for a year.
Yeah, I was in that transition, so. But so you said that you mentioned that you have familiarity with candidates that were in North Shore and internal candidates that might want to apply. With that said, do you think because you have these relationships that you'll still be able to keep a I don't mean bias, that's kind of a strong word, but separate that from?
Oh, absolutely. If we're hired, I work for you, not the candidates. And, you know, the answer is absolutely yes. I've had friends that applied for other jobs and they didn't get them. Because as I stressed, it's the board's responsibility to do the hiring. Yeah. I have no concern about me being biased.
Also, do you think, just based on your experience of this year going through superintendent searches, I know one candidate that maybe didn't fit, you know, one particular school district. Like I think the previous Bellevue superintendent, we had interviewed here at one point is my understanding. I don't know if that's true, don't quote me on it, but I've heard that. So with all these different, you know, with Snohomish and Edmonds and the other districts going through searches, they might have had viable candidates potentially, but they weren't the right fit for that district. So are you familiar with how the candidate pool has been this year? Is it, you know, where is it at maybe compared to other years? And do you feel like with that pool that there still might be really good options out there?
Well, I have followed the last 4 reasonably sized districts, Walla Walla being the smallest and probably Edmonds the largest. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
I know most of the people on that list, and from my opinion, there's still some viable candidates that have not been employed. As you probably know, the person that North Thurston hired was also on the finalist list for Edmonds. And so that's one less person. And by the way, if I could just take it back to communicating with the candidates. A very close friend of mine, a former partner, did the North Thurston search. And Mike Boring and I still communicate. And we both know the importance of timing. And when we see competition coming, we'll work with the boards, and you may lose somebody if you drag your feet too long. I was in a situation with Federal Way a couple of years back, where Green Bay, Wisconsin, it is Wisconsin backwards, yeah, Green Bay, and Federal Way were in competition with the same candidate. And so, we sped up the timeline a little bit. So, I'm not sure, did I hit more points on your question?
No, that's good. Just wondering about the candidate pool and,
Yeah.
for this
I
year,
wish
if
it
you
was
were
lar-
familiar with
I
it.
wish it was larger, I wish it was larger. Now, we may be fortunate that maybe we can find someone on a national level, which, by the way,
It's not homish, I heard. I was looking at someone from Minnesota.
are they, yeah, that's
That's
right.
one of their finalists.
We, I've personally been in searches where people have been hired from Florida, New York, Michigan, Colorado, Oregon, Arizona, 2 from New York, by the way, and probably a couple other states in there. So we might find someone. And also, because of the reputation of North Shore, there might be some in-state candidates that decided not to apply for the other jobs.
Mhm.
But once again, parallel process of interim and permanent would be important in the search, I believe.
In terms of the community outreach and engagement, I did some background research with references that came back sparkling, you'll be happy to know. And some groups have had kind of a search advisory committee or some sort, some up to 30 inside of the community. Yeah, right. And so including chief of police, local other elected officials, the faith communities, et cetera. And so just wondering about, given our timeline, it's been 8 years since we've had a search, and we've had some community interest in the search process. What are some ideas you have about a outside kind of search advisory firm or committee or something like that? What's been some of your experiences on that?
Yeah, two things. One, we can make sure they're a stakeholder group to get the input. Secondly, we could set up a special forum to keep stakeholders in the community, police chief, fire, mayor, council members, whoever you identify. We could have a special forum for them. That would be probably easy, either do it at night or during the day. When we work with people that work in schools, it's a little harder in the sense that we have to either before school or after school. And so we'd have flex time to bring in groups like that. And, that's an important stakeholder group because both, as my experience as a superintendent, you have lots of partners out there. And you need to work with your partners. I probably found that most true in Clover Park, where I dealt with the militaries so much. Yeah, you can do that.
There's a lot of different, I think, definitions of what transparency is that you mentioned as one of your key things, and that sounds amazing to me, but what is your
Okay.
view of transparency?
Transparency to me is trying to be as open as the board is comfortable in terms of communicating with the public and involving them as much as they can. Non-transparency would be a board that keeps the process so close that no one gets to meet or provide input in terms of what you're looking for, and as I said, not have a chance to meet candidates. Going back to the pool, in the timeline I proposed, talked about semifinalists. Well, there might not be enough good people that you're comfortable with to go that route. So you'd have a final, you could go straight to the finals. But I have seen a board in Washington State, I didn't work with them, our firm didn't work with them. They just kept it to the board. What, it was announced with the new superintendent. By the way, they had a great superintendent. It's a good friend of mine. But they kept it closed, and they were criticized for it by community, by press. So transparent is involving people, both at the beginning stages and at the end stages.
Another question that relates to the timeline, if you've been following North Shore, we are at an interesting point in our history in that we're getting ready for a boundary adjustment, which has been defined and approved. We're getting ready to open a new high school, or reconfiguring grades, right? So, you know, in terms of this timeline we have this spring, I wanted to ask your thoughts in terms of with all this other work going on, you know, and if we're looking at 2 months instead of 3. I did see the bell curve in your proposal about how much work is for the district and how much McPherson and Jacobson would take on, but have you worked with any other districts that were in a similar point in their history and their workload, and how that might impact the search?
I haven't worked with any school district that is opening a new high school. But by the way, I did the boundary revision. We're not alone with others for Woodville High School.
Yes.
And that was interesting. They're all interesting. You know, school districts of this size are complex organizations, and you have a lot of things going on at the same time, whether it's boundaries or something else. You have to be able to multitask and juggle. I would say that because of the short timeline, I would hope the board would be able to be flexible in terms of when you can meet. You know, you can't always wait till the second and fourth Tuesday to get things done. But to call special meetings and the like. An alternative approach would be to, when I say alternative, you can do both at the same time, is to delegate to 2 board members some of the tasks that you normally take on. That's another option to do that. I worked with a board that delegated a lot to one person, who was the vice president of the board at the time, and the board had a trust in this individual to do a fair job trying to represent the board, and so we didn't cut corners, but it saved time. Okay.
What is, do you have candidates that have depth of experience with different ethnic communities? Because our Hispanic population is growing, our free reduced lunch population is growing, and I think we haven't set our criteria yet, but that would be an important consideration.
Most candidates today, because of the demographics of our state and our country are dynamic, most candidates today have had experience working in pluralistic, multicultural kind of school districts. And, you know, that wasn't true 20 years ago. I know when I worked in North Shore, it wasn't true. It was when I worked in Seattle. But most have some are going to have more than others. I can think of one person that has lots of experience. Once again, I don't have any candidates for you right now, but I know one person that could possibly apply that he has a lot. People from Eastern Washington usually have a lot of experience with Hispanic populations. You know, I worked with the community down in the background that had a large Russian population. And, you know, what you try to do, you try to find an individual that truly believes in pluralistic approach of multiculturalism, that no matter what their particular ethnic or racial group is, that they're in it for all and each and every child and their family. I think that's one of the most important qualities that most boards have designated it as a criteria. I mentioned in I addressed your standard of the Latino community a little bit, how I would approach that. I also believe that you were very interested in someone that is used to or have experience in larger districts. And once again, Federal Way is the largest one I worked with in the state, a touch larger than North Shore, not counting Seattle. But Bellevue's almost your size. North Thurston and Richland and Battle Creek are in the 14, 15,000 area. So I think my experience there is pretty good. I did put in your folders kind of at the last minute some references from North Shore, former school board members in North Shore and an administrator in North Shore, as well as some districts in California that have 20+ thousand. So you can check those references out. You also asked about working with the new superintendent, and that's an option 5 days. So I think we addressed that one.
I do like that you've gone through a boundary change before and opened a new high school. So I think you know what that entails when you're asking. I mean, that just struck me that, I remember Woodinville and people were not, that was a trying time. Remember, they were going to originally take the sophomore, like one class, and then they ended up taking 2 at the last minute. And so I remember for students, so I think that's really good perspective to have that I'm putting in my.
Usually I've been through a variety of boundaries in my experience. Usually if it's a new school, then it goes a little smoother with the community. And they get into the athletic issues and all that kind of stuff. But Woodinville's been running for, 30 years now, and seems to be doing pretty good. I did also look at your wall of fame, and all the names on that I recognize. You mentioned Bagnell first, but I remember his son, Bill. He was a year ahead of you, probably, or a couple of years.
He was, 2 years.
And he's a principal here now, I noticed. And he was a student while I was there. And his dad was a district administrator. So, other questions?
Yeah, two. One, going back to the timeline, you mentioned that this would be a 2-month search as opposed to a 3-month search. Outside of the overlapping component, are there things that we would not be doing in a 2-month if we had more time we would do?
No, I don't think so. The area that I would cut back on would be the amount of time for advertising. Oftentimes, we'll go out 6 weeks. And, I thought for some time that 6 weeks is too long. Whether you go for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, some people will always wait till the night before to push the button to get their application online. So, there's no way. And so, I would cut a good 2 weeks off that. And then, because I'm not really involved, I'm hoping to finish Wausau by the end of April. And I told you I only have 2 or 3 days to work with them. I can move things ahead faster. I don't think it will hurt. My biggest concern about this search would be the pool of candidates. Be very honest and open. I certainly can't promise you a large group this late in the year. And in terms of, Snohomish is a good district, Edmonds is a good school district, North Thurston's a good school district, and see what they have attracted. All firms are usually, for the most part, going out after the same applicants. And for the most part, I think our services are probably pretty similar too. So it might come down to a little bit on the services, which we are comfortable with.
And we appreciate that, because none of us have done this before, so I think honesty is going to be more important to us than confidence building, if that makes sense.
Well, you're going to get honesty out of me with I like to think I'm that kind of a person. But I truly want you to know I do care about this district. It was awfully good to me. And I still have friends from this district that have meant a lot to me. Those superintendents meant a lot to me too. Dead or alive.
So kind of along those lines of looking more for honesty. In my mind, there are very different skill sets of coming into a district and managing a large change versus coming into a district and being able to be visionary. That when we hit the spring of 2018, the changes are over, in a position of being what's next. Do you feel that we would be able to find a superintendent that had both sets, or does that diminish our odds?
Surely. A district of this size, the superintendent truly needs to be a leader and a visionary leader, someone that really knows how to communicate, that really knows how to make effective decisions. When I work with boards and we do a brainstorming thing and they list the criteria they wanted, it usually comes into 5 general areas. Leadership, once again, vision, communication, decision-making, having a strong value set. And secondly, it usually comes down to administrative or management, kind of that day-to-day thing that can deal with boundaries and planning and supervising and evaluating, those kinds of things that I put under management or administrative. The third one is a knowledge of education, a knowledge of instruction, it's looking about curriculum. That's the third. The fourth area would be what I call character issues. Integrity, ethics, honesty, trustworthiness, etc. And the fifth is, I don't have a good term for it other than personal behavior or personality. And what I'm referring to there, a person that is open, visible, accessible, approachable, good guy or gal kind of thing. So the criteria that I have seen boards develop, both the 25 that I've worked with and I've seen hundreds of others, because I get them all the time from consultants around the country saying, Des Moines, Iowa, they want this, and this. They all sound pretty similar, to be honest with you. But they usually fall under those 5 criteria. I thought Yogi did a nice job in identifying their major points. I can't remember if I answered your question.
No.
Do you have that list of Bellevue's criteria?
It's in front of me.
Oh, it's in here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Some of you have it. I don't know how many I have, but I do have it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't want that to influence your
No,
criteria.
it's good to have,
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to have guidance, I guess, like a framework.
Yeah. I left a folder with potential point of contact that had a number of brochures from other school districts. And I can provide those both in state and national.
My last question is, so we received your inquiry from your firm even before we started seeking the search firm, and we received your proposal almost a week before the closing day. Was that from the central office? Was that from you?
Well, the way that worked, I'm not sure if North Shore mailed the RFP to our firm or not. But I learned about, I followed it. I learned about Larry's departure, and I contacted our firm saying, North Shore seems to have an opening. Would you contact them and send something out?
So, and follow up to that, just to understand it, it sounds like a lot of the far majority of the effort in the search is conducted by you as opposed to the main office in Omaha. It seems like the far majority, am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, majority is with the consultants. And what the main office does, and they do provide a service to us, they help the advertising going, and they get it set up on our system. It's called AppleTrack. That's how people apply for the job. And they provide us with, you know, other services, about what other jobs people have applied for. You know, I'm doing a job right now where the person's applied for every job under the sun, so I kind of like to see people that are focused in on a narrow group of districts or organizations that they want to work for. And if I see they applied from South Carolina to Alaska to, you know, Maine, I might think, you know, are they just needing a job? Or are they looking for a specific job?
I don't know if it was your search firm, but we, in a couple of the proposals, they met individually with board members and then collectively.
I noticed that
And
that was something that you asked for.
several of us took note of that.
Yeah, it's what you want. And I did the federal way search, and they wanted both, will definitely work as a group, but they wanted individual board members to meet with, and we accommodated that. That's the only district that has asked for that. That's no problem. I mean, it's just the point of time that you can devote
And
to
like you
it.
said, our accessibility.
And, yeah,
Okay, last question.
I don't want to repeat myself, but I have the time.
So, Mr. Quinn, I was just curious, you mentioned there's 110 consultants nationally. So if those folks have candidates or recruiting candidates, they filter those applications directly to you, and then you go through those, or does the home office do that
What
process?
they do, it goes both ways, home office and with me directly. And if they don't, they're going to contact me directly. I don't know most of them, you know, quite honestly, but they go through the main office. And, well, we share that information with you, and it's true. We don't get a lot of referrals. I know in my working, I've referred 2 or 3 candidates to other school districts in Arizona, places like that. But we don't get too much business from other places.
But you said you have hired, like, from New York
Oh,
and Florida. and-
Yeah, and a lot of that's because of our, the person, I know you're going to meet with Ray and Associates and First and Jacob. We're both national firms, well-known. Candidates, we'll look at those websites to see what jobs are open, and that's how we get a lot of names. Now, once again, we have to be pretty selective. Before I will refer an out-of-state person to you, I would do a lot of extra vetting, because I don't know them properly, where I'll have a better handle with the state applicants, and I will have a better handle on who I can call as a reference to in-state candidates. Now, let's say there's a candidate from Arizona. I have in the past called a consultant in Arizona saying, do you know this person? So they might be able to give me a little bit more accurate, forthright assessment of the person.
I apologize, but we do need to wrap this up.
Shucks.
I know, no, thank you very much.
Well, thank you for having us, and I wish the board and the whole the very best. And I guess I do have one quick question, you probably answer it in 2 seconds. Do you know when you're going to make a decision on who you're going to hire?
This afternoon.
Exactly. Will you be getting a call on the radio?
Yes.
Super, well, I'll be on the road back to work with you. And once again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.